Hello there and welcome. In today's tutorial, we are going to learn how to make this tiered or layered dress for a 5 to 6 year old baby girl. This dress is extremely simple to put together. So before we delve right into the details, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please hit on the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and we'd love to hear from you in the comment section. So let's zoom right into the details. So I'll be using this polka dot fabric to make this dress. I have here 2 pieces of fabric. This fabric is lightweight and it's a cotton print. So I'll be using the 2 pieces to design both the front and the back of this dress. The width of this fabric is 23.5 inches and the length is 32 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and then further fold this fabric into 2. So remember, I have 2 pieces and I'm folding the 2 fabrics into 2 again. So I'll be having 4 pieces all together. So the first thing I'm going to do is, from the folded end of this fabric, I'm going to go in by 6.5 inches and then mark on top this way, and also go down by 2 inches and rule a straight line. So this line is 2 inches in length. Then I will bring in my straight rule and then draw a reference line across this way. So from the intersection this way, I'm going to go in by 1.5 inches mark, and I will draw in my armhole curve. I would then extend a line from the armhole to touch the hem of this dress. Afterwards, I'll cut out the pattern. So remember, we are cutting out both the front and the back at the same time. From the midsection, I'm going to go in by 1/4 of an inch mark and then connect a straight line to touch the armhole area this way. Then I will cut out this part of the dress as well. So here we have the 2 pieces, one for the front and one for the back, and this is how the dress is looking at the moment. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to be ruling a straight line from the midsection of this dress, from the neck region to the hem of this dress, and then I will measure this straight line I have here and divide whatever I have here into 3. So when I divided, I had about 7.2 inches. So I'll go ahead and then input this figure on the straight line, and then I will rule a reference line across. So this is where I'll be placing my gathered fabric later on this dress to create the layers we saw in the picture. So after ruling the line, I'm going to create notches at each point of this line at the sides of the dress. I'm doing this so I can be able to easily mark out the lines at the other side of the fabric. So I'm going to further fold this dress into 2. So I'll bring in another piece of fabric. This fabric is the same width as the dress pattern we cut out earlier. So I'll fold this fabric into 2 again to form 4 pieces. So I'll place my dress on the fabric this way. The folded ends are facing the same direction. I'll make sure the dress is properly aligned, then I'll place it on the fabric this way, and I'll go ahead and then cut out the first layer we'll be placing on this dress. So I'm cutting out up until the first line we drew on the main dress. So I'm not going to extend this beyond that line. So I'm marking out where the lines are on the other piece of fabric, and then I'll go ahead and connect a straight line, then I'll cut this out. So this is going to be the first layer on both the front and then the back on the main fabric of this dress. So this main fabric is like the lining of the dress that we are making, and so I have here the lining for both the front and then the back, and I also have here the cutout for the first layer. So this is what it is going to look like. I will place the first layer on top of the lining fabric, and then I would hold them down with pins and repeat the same process for the other piece of fabric. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to head to my sewing machine and draw gathers at the neck region of this dress for both the front and then the back pieces. So this is it. The gathers have been drawn on both the front and then the back, and I drew these gathers up to 7.5 inches in width. And I have here my bias tape that I'll be using to also finish off the neck of this dress. This bias tape is 1/2 inch in width. I'll place it on the gathered portion of the neckline, stitch them down, and then turn it inside out. So I want the bias tape to show at the right side of this dress, so I'll be starting from the wrong side, stitch it down, and then turn it towards the right side, just to create that beautiful design we want to see on this dress. So I'm done with the bias tape. This is what the neck region looks like. It's looking so neat. So let's go ahead and then create the second and third layers for this dress. So set this main fabric aside and then work on the layers. So I have here pieces of fabric for the second and then the third layers. So one of the fabric is longer than the other, and this fabric is actually 2 pieces that are folded into 4 pieces. So this is it, 4 pieces for both the third and then the second layer. The length of the second layer is 9.5 inches, and then the width is about 20 inches, and then the length of the second layer is 10.5 inches, and then the width is 22 inches. So I'll open it up. Remember, we have 2 pieces, one for each side of the dress. So I have 2 pieces for both the second and then the third layers. I intended to actually just fold in the hem area and then stitch them down on the sewing machine and draw gathers at the top, but I changed this later. So I used a bias tape to actually finish off the hem of both the first and then the second layers. So I'm going to be showing you how I did that. So this is what it looks like. I've drawn the gathers, and this is how the hem looks like, the design I created at the hem. So I have one unfinished one here, and I also have my bias tape here. So I just held the hem this way and then folded the bias tape to just cover the hem, and then I stitched it down on the sewing machine from one end to the other. So this is what I did for each of the layers of this dress. I'm done creating the layers for this dress. This is what the second and then the third look like. So I'm going to be placing the layers that I just made on each of the lines that we created on the lining piece of this dress. So I'll place it on top of the line this way and then head to my sewing machine and stitch it down. But while I'm stitching, I'll be leaving half an inch away from the sides of this dress for each single layer that I'm going to be placing on the lining. I won't stitch directly from the side. I'll leave half an inch on both sides. So I'll go and then stitch the second layer on top of the lining as well. So this is the other side that we did not mark. Remember, we've created notches at the sides. So I'm going to come in with my ruler and then connect straight lines from the sides where we created the notches. And then I will bring in my layers that I've gathered, and then I will repeat the same process we did for the other piece of the dress by stitching the layers down onto the lining of this dress. So after stitching it down, I'm done with the front and back. This is what they look like. So the next we'll do is to clean the armhole areas with a bias tape as well, and this is going to be our strap as well. So I created this bias tape from a white piece of fabric. This fabric is 14.5 inches in length and 2.5 inches in width. So I just folded in half an inch on each side to create the bias tape, and then I'm going to be placing this on the armhole of this dress. So I align the layer I have on the front to the lining piece, and then bring in my bias tape and then pin them down around the armhole area. So I'll be repeating the same process by pinning the bias tape on the other side of the armhole as well. Then I will head to my sewing machine and then stitch this down on half an inch. So I'll be stitching both armhole areas down with the bias tape. So I finished off one side of this dress. This is what we are going to try to achieve on the other side. This is it. I've created a strap as well, and I extended the bias tape to the other side of the armhole of the other piece of dress. So I've stitched the bias tape at this armhole area. So I'm going to measure from this point outward on this bias tape. I'll go in by 7 inches. This is how long my strap is going to be, and then I will mark the 7 inches out. Then from the area we marked, I would place it on the other side of the armhole, right from the neck region, and then pin it down. So when I'm done pinning, I would stitch this armhole area down on half an inch on the sewing machine, and then I will fold in the bias tape to cover the rough edges of the armhole, and then stitch it down as well. When I get to the strap area, I'll just fold it in as well, and then stitch all around from one armhole to the other. And so I'm done stitching the straps and then the armhole. This is what it looks like. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be joining each of the tiers we have on this dress. So I'm going to start with the first tier. I'll just pin them, hold it down with pins. I'm pinning together only the layers or the tiers we have on the lining piece of this dress. So I'll pin them down on this side and then repeat the same process for the other side of this dress. Then when I'm done pinning, I will head to my sewing machine and then stitch the sides of these tiers down. So I'm done stitching the tiers. I would also go ahead and then stitch the lining piece of this dress. I will do this by pushing the tiers away from the lining piece of this dress. So I'll push it in and then stitch from the armhole area down to the hem of this dress on 1/2 inch. So this is my dress. This is what it looks like. It's looking so good already, and this is how the tiers are looking like, the layers are looking like on this dress. And this is the side as well. If you follow this process to stitch this dress this way, you realize that we'll be having a small hole at the sides of each of the tiers of this dress. So I'll head to my sewing machine and then close that tiny hole. This should be about 1 inch in length. So I'll head to my sewing machine and then close those holes on each of the tiers, the second and then the third tiers of this dress. I also fold in the hem of this dress, that is the lining piece. Fold it in and then clean off the hem. And we are done with this dress. This is what the final work looks like. Thank you so much for making time to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and then you give us a thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in our next tutorial.